This video was brought to you by the lovely members of my Patreon.
And I think that they're like, I remember commenting on one thread and someone was like, oh my God, you're so uptight and you're so this and you're so that, you're so socially conservative. Someone called me socially conservative. Girl, you better go somewhere with that. You know, I'm not socially conservative because I think that people should be respecting of consent in public, you know, with their BDSM. That's not me being socially conservative. That's me being a decent person. That's me being considerate of other people. And I think that consent should be at the forefront of your BDSM practice. Hey guys, it's Kat and it's time for another episode of True Tea. I wanted to thank you guys so much for joining me here for yet another episode of True Tea. I appreciate those of you guys who come back every single week, ready for a fresh brew of True Tea. Thank you so much for supporting the work that I do here, especially those of you guys who have been following me on Patreon. I appreciate that you guys are always eager to see what I have to create and listen to me rant about my daily bullshit on my Patreon. So thank you so much for supporting me. It really does mean an awful lot, especially during a time like this. So yeah. Anyway, what have you guys been up to? How's your week been? What have you been doing? Let's just call the elephant out in the room right away. I've got an eye patch on, so I will summarize and say that I'm not doing that great. My eye was sort of messed up last week. It's not fully 100%. I'm only filming this video because I filmed a bunch of like footage for previous True Tea episodes. And then when I went to edit them, I realized that I had lost some footage. So I would love not to film right now, but I had to film. I had to do something because the Virgo in me will not allow me to go a Tuesday without uploading. So here I am. Hopefully you guys are doing well. You know, capitalism makes me, you know, feel like I gotta do all this stuff. But you know what? There are a lot of people out there who have it a lot worse than me. Things could be so much worse, and that's just something I have to continuously remind myself of. So yeah. Anyway, we're gonna be having a conversation about doing BDSM in public, but before we get into this conversation, I would highly suggest that you go to your kitchen and grab yourself something to drink. Personally, I am drinking some, what is this? This is AHA. I've been going through this whole thing with like 0 calories, 0 carb sodas. This is a strawberry cucumber AHA drink. It is pretty good. Not my favorite, but it's pretty good. So yeah, let me know what's in your mug in the comment box below. Also, if you're a fan of these kind of sodas, what's your favorite? So far, my favorite is the bubbly mango flavor. So yeah. Anyway, let me take a big sip of this and let's get right into this video. So one of the things I've been trying to do in the past couple of years is be less present on Facebook. Of course, now with COVID and with quarantine, Facebook has become a little bit more important to me. And so I've joined a bunch of social groups and things, which, side note, if you ever see me in a Facebook group acting like a civilian, I would greatly, especially if it's polyamory or BDSM related, I would greatly appreciate it if you didn't fangirl on the posts that I'm making. I understand, but you know, if you watch these videos regularly, you will understand why I'm not crazy about that. So if you're excited enough about me to, you know me and be excited to see me, respect that I am not crazy about people freaking out over me being in these Facebook groups, but whatever, I'm part of these Facebook groups. And this is a topic that came up in one of the Facebook groups I'm in. And honestly, it was one of the most maddening debates I've ever had. So I wanted to bring it to you guys, introduce it to you guys so that we can have a conversation about it. We usually have really productive conversations over here. And let's just say that the conversations under this post were not quite very productive. So I thought that I would sort of bring this to you guys and have a conversation with you guys about it. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Now, this is a particular response to a video that went viral recently of a woman leading a man dressed as a puppy through a grocery store. This was a BDSM scene that was acted out in public in front of strangers. And for some reason, it started a lot of debate. Now, I saw a lot of people who, I mean, I know that this is probably gonna sound really elitist and shitty, but we're gonna say it. I saw a lot of vanillas and fetishists, and people who look at this picture and are maybe kind of excited or titillated by it, reshare the picture and basically say goals. You know, I saw so many variations of this post. It was a picture, it was also a video, and it was a lot of people just basically celebrating the optics of, you know, this woman leading this man dressed in puppy fetish gear through a grocery store. And to be honest with you guys, coming from the BDSM community, I was a little frustrated by that. I was a little frustrated about that, and that's what we're gonna talk about in this video, because when I saw the image of this woman, this dominant, leading this puppy, this man dressed as a dog, through the store, the immediate thing I thought, the first thing I thought was the people who are in the store, some of whom might be children, did not consent to this. Did not consent to be included in your scene. And when I brought this up in some of the conversations I had, I realized that quite a few people don't really understand that, or maybe they think that it's just something that we should all accept. And you guys know, I've been trying to put this in between a lot of the things that I say in a lot of my YouTube channel. You know, I do think that we do need to be open-minded and accepting of people who are different from us, but I definitely believe that the line with that really does cross over into stuff like consent violations. And while for me, this is not a consent violation in the same way sexual assault is, it still shows an indifference to consent that bothers me. And I don't like this idea that we should all just accept somebody, including strangers, in their BDSM scene, which I know that there's a lot. Look, listen, let me level with you guys. I know we get this. I know you and I understand this, but there's a lot of people who don't. So let's have a longer conversation about it. Let's actually talk about this. Let's really get into it, because I got a lot of things to say about this, and I just wanted to sort of get my thoughts out there. So let's dive in. So first and foremost, I think it's important to explain that for most of us in the BDSM community, BDSM is escapism. It is a thing that is distinctly disconnected from our daily lives. Now, one of the things that came up in the debate around this is, you know, well, there are some people who live a 24/7 dynamic, which means that they are in their BDSM dynamic 24/7. Now, the frustration I had, and I know again that this sounds elitist and shitty, and some people don't want to hear this, but look, y'all know that this is true tea. I'm keeping it 100% real, and I'm saying things I want to say. If y'all want to correct me, you can correct me, but I get really upset about this, so here we go. The people who say that, like, this was just an example of someone living their 24/7 dynamic, I promise you probably have never met a person in a 24/7 BDSM dynamic. Now, I guess let's back up, because I'm sure there's a lot of you guys who don't understand this. There's some BDSMers where BDSM is a very, very integral part of their lifestyle, and it is the way that they live. So for example, I know several people actually, but I know a couple of men who are masters. They call themselves masters, right? And they have several, usually women, who live with them and take care of them and take care of the house and da-da-da-da-da. And they are classed as slaves, right? Now, these are people who live in a 24/7 dynamic. They are there to service their master. It is their life, their lifestyle. And this is something that they have entered into consensually. They've decided this is what they want to do. And so it affects their life, right? The thing about those people, and those people for me at least, are probably some of the most dedicated to BDSM, the most committed to maintaining a BDSM dynamic. The thing about those people, when it comes to the ones that are respected, there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, or they're new and they're young and they do silly things, which we will talk about in a minute. But these people who are usually, they're older, they've been in the BDSM community for a while, they've often had to fight for space in the BDSM community, so they're delicate around the optics of their BDSM. You're not gonna see them walk through a store with chains on their submissives and slaves. You're not gonna see that, because they understand that their BDSM is something that is private. And while they may all walk around with little collars on, which we'll get to in a minute, and they may, you know, follow him in public and things like that, you're not gonna see them enact a BDSM scene in public, because it is a direct violation of the consent of strangers. the mom with her kid did not consent to seeing, this guy lead this group of women through the store on chains, right? So what they've done is they've taken their resources, because usually the men who do this have resources, and they've created an alternative space and an alternative world where they can sit there and experience their BDSM in that way, right? Now, Evie Lupine spoke about this on her channel, which, side note, if you guys are looking for people who go a little bit deeper into BDSM education, I would definitely suggest Evie Lupine. I would definitely suggest Brittany Simon. They do commit a lot more time into getting into all the intricacies of this. But one of the things that Evie Lupine brought up on her channel is that there was this BDSM convention that happened at this hotel. It's a very well-known BDSM convention. And they had to shut that convention down at that particular hotel because people were unfortunately bringing their BDSM out in public. Now, I've done BDSM conventions at hotels, and usually the way that it works is you've got a lot of rules about what you can wear and what you can't wear. And these are rules that are in place because we do want to respect the vanillas who are just staying in the hotel. And so there's a certain section of the hotel you go to where you can be, for the most part, as free and freaky as possible. But past that point, you can't just be out there like that. And apparently at this BDSM convention, there were people who took their BDSM beyond the scale of where they're supposed to be doing BDSM in the hotel. And now that convention was canceled. Was canceled because certain people decided that they were going to take their BDSM and bring it into a context that was inappropriate, right? And I think that that's a really important story to tell, because the main reason why you're not gonna see a lot of BDSMers who respect the space, who respect the community, who respect the spaces that have been fought for people to be able to safely practice their BDSM is because of shit like that, right? It's because of stuff like that that you're not gonna see people do this. So to be frank with you guys, it was really frustrating for me to speak to people who are not very much involved in the BDSM community, but maybe they watch videos on the internet, or maybe they're titillated by the idea, look at something like this and applaud it as though they're helping bring normalcy to BDSM. You're not helping us by saying that people who are uncomfortable with our kinks should just accept it while we practice them in public. That is not helpful. And I'm sorry that I get really passionate about this, because it was something that I saw defended so much. And the woman who did this, which I will talk about in a minute, she's very flagrant about it. She's very, very flagrant about it. She doesn't care. It kind of just is what it is, and she's gonna do her thing. And when I did a bit of research into this person, which, side note, I've met her before. I didn't realize when I was first looking at the pictures that she lives in Los Angeles. LA is very small. I know a lot of people. I like at one of the last events I went to, I remember seeing her. It's hard because online you won't see, she'll post a couple of pictures where she's wearing glasses, but a lot of times she doesn't. She usually wears her glasses when she's out and about, but when she's taking photos, she doesn't. So it was a little bit hard for me to recognize her at first, but we have a lot of mutual friends. And I will say, I'm gonna talk about, if you manage to see this video, I'm gonna talk about you a little bit. But before I get into what I'm gonna say, I have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people. If you need people to help you do this better, I can connect you. We'll come back to this though. So when I did a bit of research into this person, it turns out that she is a 21-year-old sex worker who was hired by this guy to do this scene, right? And in the article that I read, it talked about her basically being in a position where she was homeless, she was struggling, she discovered BDSM and kink and being a dominatrix, and she started doing it, and it's what brought her out of poverty. And I think that that's great. I think that sex work and, that hustle, things like that, good for you. Sex work is work, okay. However, as somebody who knows a lot of sex workers, as somebody who knows a lot of dominants, I don't know a single person who would do this. And I don't know a single person who would do this because, going back to the hotel example I just gave you, it puts the community at risk. For your one scene where this guy demanded you take him out in public because these submissives, for submissives, they are awfully demanding, but we won't get into that. If you're dumb, you know. I'm not, but I know. You for that little bit of momentary money that you made there, you could have feasibly messed it up for not just yourself, but for everybody, you know? And there are, you know, here's the thing about this that I will say. I used to be able to say that there are appropriate, well, I still can say there's appropriate context for this, but for example, we recently had, well, not recently, it was supposed to happen, but it did not happen. Folsom Street Fair. That's where I got this. Shout out to Emma Almo, who made this amazing leather piece. She's awesome. Her work is definitely worth it. At Folsom Street Fair, which Folsom Street Fair, if you guys don't know, is a big BDSM street fair where they corner off some portions of San Francisco. And it's just kind of one of those out in the open. Everyone's just outside doing the BDSM thing. You see women leading men around on leashes and things. I saw so much of that. You see all types of like kinky, open, debaucherous shit. And you know, when that was still available, I used to be able to say, go do that there, right? But unfortunately, those BDSM events are closed, right? But that doesn't mean that you force your kink on strangers, on children. And it's the shit that gets, so I get really upset when it comes to the kid stuff, because as much as I do believe that we should be encouraging a more sex positive environment for people who are coming up, you know, especially girls should not feel like sex is something that they need to do for men, you know, all that stuff, you know, like I get that, but I am suspicious of anybody who believes that it is okay for you to put this in front of children. I just am. And the thing about it is, I don't know a BDSMer who I respect, who is respected in the community, who does not feel that way. You know, everyone knows that kids are off limits. And the thing about going out in public in a place where you haven't consented is that you could potentially run into kids. And for that reason alone, you should keep your BDSM to yourself. Your kink is your kink. My kink is my kink. You don't put your kinks on people. It's disgusting. Now at a BDSM affair, it's a little bit more appropriate. Maybe not everyone's gonna love seeing what you're doing, but most of us walking into this space are adults. Well, everyone should be a fucking adult. We've consented to at least seeing kinky things and being around kinky things. And you don't have to worry about people saying, well, I didn't agree to you. You know, no, that's a space. You know, you don't go to a BDSM convention and then complain about the dominatrix leading men around on leashes, you know? That's just not a thing that happens, right? But people going to the grocery store have every right to assume that they're not gonna see some kinky, perverse, you know, BDSM performance. You know what I mean? They know that there's no way they could consent to that. And for me, it's the fact that people don't understand that bothers me so much. It bothers me so much. Now let's get to some of the stupid arguments. So a lot of people were looking at this, vanillas, were looking at this and they're saying, well, you know what? What's wrong with that? You know, they're not doing anything sexual. They're not, you know, showing, you know, it's not like, you know, he's rubbing his dick on her leg and da-da-da-da-da, you know, what's wrong with them doing it, right? Here's what I need people to understand. The kind of guys who want you to lead them around on a leash in public are into humiliation. They have a humiliation and often a degradation kink, right? And they're getting off, especially because of the fact that their identity is actually, for the most part, hidden. They're getting off on people gawking at them. They're getting off on people being uncomfortable. They're getting off on people being shocked, right? So what that means is this person is effectively making strangers part of the scene. Now, it's not exactly the same as a guy jerking off in a hotel room and a maid coming in and being shocked by it and then the guy having an orgasm. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar. The threat of humiliation and things like that is there, right? And for me, it's just completely inappropriate to act like this isn't a thing that doesn't respect people's consent. It absolutely is at the very minimum, it shows an indifference to caring about how other people feel about what you're doing kink-wise, which for me seems like a very callous thing to do, a very selfish thing to do. I don't care how much money you got paid for that. It's inappropriate. And I have not seen any people in the BDSM community that I know and respect defend this, because it's obviously inappropriate. And one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because I was very concerned by the fact that so many people were defending it. I was very concerned by the fact that so many people said, what's wrong with this? You know, just let everyone's freak flag fly. You know, if we allow gays to kiss on the street, what's so wrong with this? Now let's get to that conversation. Let's get to that stupid fucking argument. So in the comment section of the Facebook post where I was having most of these arguments, there were a lot of people basically saying, well, how is this different? How are you being offended by this? How is that different than people being offended by two gay men kissing? And I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry, but if you think that's a good argument, you are a fucking homophobe. And I don't care if you're gay. That's super homophobic. You know, there were some people leaving a silly what if comments about, well, what if this guy identifies as a dog? And like, isn't it just like, aren't we closed-minded for looking at his lifestyle and judging him? That's not what this was. That's not what this was. This was a grown man who paid a 21-year-old girl who didn't know a lot about this stuff to bring him through a grocery store for his humiliation kink. You know, don't compare that to people in the LGBT community living their lives honestly. Please don't fucking do that. Please don't compare two men kissing to a dominatrix walking a man down. You know, I'm sorry. Now there's a lot of debate. This is a kind of a side conversation, but there is a lot of debate about, you know, this sort of thing at Pride. You guys should know by now that like, I don't like Pride. I've talked about it a bunch of times on this channel. I'm not a fan of Pride. Don't go to it. Nothing's there for me. Glad it happened. Good for you guys, whatever. But I'm not crazy about Pride, but I do think it's important to acknowledge that the BDSM community, especially the leather community, which is like, for a lot of people, like the foundation of the BDSM community, really played a really huge role in how a lot of specifically gay men, but also lesbian women, sort of dealt with living through the AIDS crisis in a time where being physical with each other was scary. So there's a lot of LGBT history connected to that. And, you know, there's a whole debate about whether or not kinksters and things like that should come out. But at the base of it all, guys, at the base of it all, two gay men existing in public is not the same as this person doing a BDSM scene in public. It's just not the same. It's just not. It's absolutely not. The people saying, well, it's not sexual. Listen, I haven't talked to you guys intimately about my kinks because, you know, I don't need y'all in my business like that. I don't care about justifying my kinks to you. But I'm a big rope bunny. I'm a big rope bottom. I like being tied up. Love it. Love it to bits, right? I'm not going to sit in Times Square. I'm not going to sit in the middle of a park. I'm not going to stand in a grocery store and let my dominant tie me up. It's just not happening. Rope for me isn't always sexual. A lot of the BDSM I do is not sexual. I'm still not going to put myself in a position where I am potentially exposing people without their consent to a kink that could potentially make them uncomfortable. I'm just not gonna do it. And that's part of being a responsible BDSMer. It's not even connected to having shame. You know, no, I mean, listen, no one's oppressing you because you can't wear your puppy mask in public. And the truth about that is most people who are into that play know that. They don't need to be told that. What was really maddening to me was seeing the people who looked at the optics of this and were turned on by it and they didn't understand how inappropriate it was. Like, that just drove me crazy, right? Now let's get back to this girl, okay? Let's get back to her. So this girl, she's 21 years old. Apparently she lives at one of the dungeons, and there's only one dungeon I know of in LA where you can do that. So I know the dungeon that she lives at, and I know a lot of people who work there. When I first looked at this, the thing I thought to myself was, these are two people who probably are new. You know, a lot of people who, when they're starting out in the BDSM community, they do things that are technically inappropriate, especially when it comes to stuff like consent. I know that we have a very black and white view of consent, right? But you'd think that people in the BDSM community would always get it. But the fact is, we're all living in a world where consent is something that people think they all understand but don't. You know? So there's a lot of people who are living in this world where they haven't had a lot of in-depth conversations about consent, who come into BDSM and do things that are technically inappropriate, that are technically showing indifference to other people's consent, and they have to learn. And when I looked at the article and I saw that she was 21 and she's only been doing this for a couple of years, and it's mostly in the context of survival sex work, I got it, you know? So while I definitely have a lot of harsh feelings about this, there's a really, really big part of me that sees this and sees that it is ignorance. It is ignorance, you know? It is just her probably not truly understanding why what she did was inappropriate. Which is why I said at part of this video, I know one of my besties has been a dominant woman in Los Angeles for decades, right? And she has done pro-dom work. She used to work for kink.com. I know a lot of people who are similar to that. And I can connect you if you need someone to talk to you, because this is the sort of shit that's going to, listen, let's just be honest. You're messing up your own bag. You're fumbling your own bag, okay? Let's just be blunt about that. You're not really taking advantage of this the way you probably should. Involving the public is a great way to get yourself caught, you know, first and foremost. It's a good way for you to lose clientele, because no one, you know, a lot of people aren't going to want to be potentially associated with somebody who is doing things like this, doing stunts like this. It's just not smart. It's just not smart. And if you need people to talk to and you watch this video, I will connect you. I'm only extending that offer out to her. If you see this, reach out to me, message me. My DMs are open on my Twitter. Because seriously, you're not helping yourself. And I think that if you're gonna do this, you need to probably do it correctly. None of the pro-doms I know would ever do anything like this. But I can understand being a 21-year-old girl and having this person who's willing to give you money, and you thinking, well, I'm just gonna do this quick little thing or whatever, and it's not a big deal, right? I get the short-sightedness of, you know, listen, I know that there are some people who watch these videos and they're 21 and they get really offended when I talk about being in your early 20s, but as somebody who is in their early 20s and did a lot of stuff, trust me when I say, when you get older, you will see the short-sightedness of your thoughts, and you will laugh at just how temporary you thought things were and you not fully processing stuff, right? Getting this little bit of money right now for this guy who wants you to, it's a temporary fix. But what you should really be working on is getting long-term repeat clients. Because that's the thing too. In the article I read, she says that he was being inappropriate with her while they were having their scene in public in front of people, and she had to go take him outside and spank him and things like that. Then apparently he tried to get her to get a COVID test, because after walking on the floor all day, apparently he was worried about her giving him COVID. Like, bonkers, right? These kind of people who don't respect you enough to want for you to be safe, they're not going to be repeat clients. Girl, let me not give sex work advice, but that's just me keeping it real. You know, that's just being realistic. Those are not going to be repeat clients. You know, they're just not. And it sucks too, because one of the big dungeons that used to get rented out for pro work just closed down. There's a lot of stuff that's closing down right now. So I do understand to some degree the, you know, people feel like there's no spaces to go and do the thing. I mean, there is a dungeon open in LA. Ooh, I'm gonna hold my opinions about it, but let's just put it this way. The stuff that's open now, it's stuff that's kind of always been a little shady. So enter into that at your own risk, but there are options. And if you are curious, hit me up, because I know some people who might be able to help you out. But anyway, I just wanted to bring this to you guys because, again, I was really disturbed by the fact that so many people looked at this and like didn't see an issue with it or defending it. Like that was truly for me a very bizarre and confusing thing. For me, this was so clearly and obviously a consent violation, and it should be looked at as such. Again, to me, it's not the same as sexual assault, but to me, anyone who would even come close to, who would even risk putting their kinks in front of children, no. To me, anyone who defends that is a sex pest at minimum. I'm sure, again, that this was all ignorance. And so there's part of me that's very forgiving of her doing something that was inappropriate, especially in a position where she needs money, especially in a position where we're all in this quarantine and a lot of us are losing our jobs and things. I get it. But girl, there are smarter ways to do it. There are smarter and safer ways to do it. You really, to be frank with you, you should probably have had a COVID test. I know you're offended by him wanting you to get tested and things like that and wanting to, check your last test. But the thing is, your safety, especially with COVID, should have been one of the many things you factored into before you agreed to do the scene. What if he gave you COVID, girl? Would sacrificing your entire career as a dominant be worth that one time you took someone out in public to be edgy on the internet? Would it be worth it? Because I don't think so. I personally don't think so. So anyway, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this, especially if you are a BDSMer. I'm also very curious for the vanillas. If you were at the grocery store and you saw somebody walking their dog and the dog is human, what would your thoughts be? My first thought would be, well, that's certainly not a service animal, but but I'm curious, and I think that they're like, I remember commenting on one thread and someone was like, oh my God, you're so uptight and you're so this and you're so that, you're so socially conservative. Someone called me socially conservative. Girl, you better go somewhere with that. I'm not socially conservative because I think that people should be respecting of consent in public, with their BDSM. That's not me being socially conservative. That's me being a decent person. That's me being considerate of other people. And I think that consent should be at the forefront of your BDSM practice. And so this sort of situation shouldn't even come close to entering into your mind. It shouldn't even been a consideration you were making. So, I'll get off my soapbox, but girl, listen, I'm desensitized. I've seen a lot of shit, girl. As we talked about on this show, I've seen a lot of shit. So it's not, a man being walked on a leash, that's just a Saturday afternoon for me. It's more about everyone else other than me, which is what you should be thinking about when you're doing BDSM in general. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts. I'm very curious what you guys have to say about this. This is definitely a hot topic, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about it in the comment section. Be nice. Be nice. Some of y'all really tried it last week, so we'll let it go. But my block button is anyway, if you made it through this entire video, please put this emoji in the comment section below. I would greatly appreciate it. And listen, you don't have to do it. I'm not saying you got to do anything. You can do whatever you want. I give you the consent to put this in the comment section if you would like. However, there is a really cool underground emoji BDSM industrial party, and I would love to invite you, but if you don't put the emoji there, it just probably it will be inappropriate. So I'm just saying, if you care about that party, you would put that emoji down. So yeah, you do it that way, you will. Anyway, on that note, I will see you guys next week. Right now, you're looking at 2 videos if you would like to continue to sip true tea right here on the channel. And in the corner, there are several ways you can send me a tip if you're interested in giving me your tip. Just putting it right there in my package, which you could also send me at the following address. Sorry, I can't not make that joke. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.